Hey everyone, as a newer Aliens fan and a huge fan of the World War Z game, I was very excited when Aliens Fireteam Elite was announced. As I've said in other videos, I've played World War Z to death, so I've been desperately trying to find a similar game to play, and wanted to see if Fireteam Elite would be just that. The Aliens games have had a very hit or miss history, so it's a roll of a dice as to if a new game in that franchise will actually turn out good. So let's take a look and see if Aliens Fireteam Elite, developed by Cold Iron Studios, is worth playing. As always, if you enjoy the review, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more gaming news, reviews, and discussions. With that said, let's get into it. But before we get into the review, I do want to mention this is a budget title at $40 that had a very small team of just over 20 people working on it, so some things are very rough around the edges. To put that in perspective, their team is less than a third of the size of the Godfall team, a game I reviewed not too long ago. However, I do feel like people with specific tastes will really enjoy the game and have a lot of fun with it. But I just don't want anyone going into the game with false expectations. You play as a colonial marine stationed on the USS Endeavour, and you're tasked with responding to a distress signal from the Katanga refinery station. And of course, once you reach the vessel, you find out it's overrun with xenomorphs. In the first act of 4, you meet up with a scientist who had been working for Weyland-Yutani, who reveals that his company discovered xenomorph eggs, an mutagenic substance on the planet that the Katanga is orbiting. I don't want to give too much more away because Fireteam Elite is very light on story elements, but of course, Weyland-Yutani is up to no good, and you have to discover what exactly they were doing with the xenomorphs and put a stop to it. For what's there, it's actually a decent story, but aside of a very short cutscene at the beginning, the entire story is given to you in exposition jumps from characters at the main hub you spend time at between missions and from characters over the radio during missions. It can be a little difficult to pay attention to the story while you're fighting waves of xenomorphs, but you can usually talk to people at the hub after a mission to sum up what has happened. There's also hidden collectibles that give a surprisingly deep amount of lore connected to the Aliens franchise, and I think it's something longtime fans will really enjoy. It can be a little obtuse to find the collectibles since some of them are hidden in combat areas, but they are there to provide extra lore for Aliens fans. The combat is really the main focus of the game, however, and in that department, it does a mostly good job, with a few missteps along the way. It's a 3-person co-op third-person shooter, although if you want to play solo, you can do so with AI teammates. That being said, I would mostly recommend playing with other people, but more on that later. You get to design your character's appearance, and while the options are limited, I do prefer that to having everyone choose one of 5 stock character templates or something like that. The actual gunplay, while not quite as tight as in World War Z or even something like Gears of War, is still very good, and there are definitely some pulse-pumpingly intense moments during the campaign. There's 4 acts with 3 missions in each one, and some of the levels can be quite long, so expect to get roughly 6 to 8 hours from your first playthrough. But it really depends on if you're looking for the collectibles or not, because that can greatly extend how long a mission takes. There's a good amount of challenge here, and it can really ramp up, especially in the later levels. People who have played World War Z will be right at home in Fireteam Elite, and there's definitely some Left 4 Dead DNA in the gameplay as well, to a lesser extent. For those who haven't played those games, you fight xenomorphs and synthetics through various different linear locations. At certain points, you'll have to hunker down and defend a certain point from waves of enemies. These sections can be really challenging at times, and some will require you to properly coordinate with your group to finish them. You can find single-use defensive consumables during the missions that you can use to aid you in your defensive sections. There's auto turrets, mines, incendiary ammo, and a lot more items that can make these areas really fun. You also have to be careful not to kill aliens too close to yourself, or you'll be covered in acid blood, which will, of course, harm you. There's also a dodge roll with a stamina bar, so you can't avoid their attacks to try and not get mauled in the face by them. There's 5 different classes to choose from, each having 3 unique abilities. These abilities are vital to success, and you'll have to strategically use them to get through missions, especially on the later levels. There's the Gunner, who is your straight-up soldier class and can deal some serious damage with their grenade and overclocking abilities. The Demolisher class basically destroys everything in its path. You get abilities that can shoot rockets and concussion grenades. This class is also able to use heavy weapons like the Smart Gun and Flamethrower, which will allow you to recreate some of the iconic scenes in the Alien movies as you basically just explode everything in your path. The Technician class uses gadgets to defeat enemies, the Doc is your medical class providing aid and buffs to your teammates, and finally the Recon class is also a support class that can provide buffs to your team as well. The class makeup of your team can determine the difficulty as well, because I found some classes, especially the Demolisher, to be insanely more powerful than everything else. The Smart Gun in particular is over the top ridiculous. It automatically tracks enemies, so you basically just have to point in their general direction and watch them explode. Although given the level of challenge the game can provide, you do need to dish out insane amounts of damage to prevent your face from being bitten off, or hugged off in some cases. Each class has a skill tree of sorts. It's a board that you can socket abilities into, and certain abilities will take up more space than others. Additional areas in the board will unlock as you level up, so you can add in more abilities and have to make sure they all fit in together, so there is some strategy to it. Alongside that, you can customize your weapons with up to 3 attachments each that have a wide range of abilities. Each weapon also can level up, which adds in additional bonuses as well. Weapons are very reminiscent of the Aliens movies and use sounds very similar to them as well. The pulse rifle in particular sounds just right, and Aliens fans should love it.
Watch the route in!
Each class will have a combat ranking, which is determined by your class level, abilities, weapon level, and overall profile level. This determines what difficulty you can play on, as the harder difficulties will have higher combat ranking requirements, so this is the main progression loop of the game. Outside of that, you can customize your character with a head accessory and outfit, alongside with being able to customize your weapon's appearance as well. There's 2 types of currencies, one used to buy weapons, attachments, and consumables, and another to buy cosmetics and challenge cards. At the time of writing, there are no microtransactions thankfully, and purchases are earned through gameplay outside of the additional deluxe edition cosmetics. While the extra cosmetics are nice and Aliens fans will appreciate them, I would not say the deluxe edition contents are worth it, so I would only buy it if you're really enjoying the game and know you're going to keep playing it for a long time and want to support the developers. What really made things interesting for me were the challenge cards. You're able to apply 1 challenge card per mission, which can lead to the missions being changed drastically. This can help with the replayability outside of just playing on higher difficulties, and some of the challenges were really fun. I played one card that changed all the standard xenomorphs into the exploding variety, which ended up being even more ridiculous than it sounds. It was an incredible challenge, but it made replaying that particular level much more fun. The cards have a really good risk-reward system in place. There's a wide range of cards, and some are just purely buffs to your character, so those can be saved to help out on harder difficulties. The one that changed the missions provide bonus experience and money, so it creates a fun risk-reward system. The only issue is that they are one-time use and you need to use a special currency to buy them, but that currency is also used to buy outfits, hats, and other cosmetics. You can get cards from daily missions and special hidden caches that are hidden each level, so there are at least other ways to get them as well. And without going into spoiler territory, that's basically it, so let's go into what worked and what didn't. Like I said at the start, this is a budget game, and while I do think they did a good job with the moment-to-moment gameplay, there are some very rough edges to the game. Part of it is due to the budget, and some other things might just be from inexperience since this is Cold Iron's first game. This video would be an hour long if I went to every little detail, so I'm just going to focus on some of the major points. For starters, this game does not hold your hand at all, which, depending on your preferences, this might be a little disappointment, or it might be something that you like. There's no tutorials, and basically nothing is explained, so you have to figure out how the combat works and how all the systems play together on your own. So I would say this is a game that you might have to read gameplay guides for before starting, just so you know how to do even some basic things. It's not overly complicated, but some explanations of how the leveling system and other things work would have been nice. This game does have some bugs and glitches, although it's not as bad as I thought it would be, but don't get me wrong, they definitely are there. It's mostly been audio issues, which can be pretty severe at times, but for the most part, the gameplay consistently worked outside of a few odd instances. I had one mission where the audio completely cut out, which made it incredibly awkward to play. I had to restart the game to fix it, but it was fine after that. There are actually a lot of other audio bugs and glitches, so I do hope they fix that. And it does seem like the PS4 version has some crashing and performance issues, so do keep that in mind if you play on there. The PlayStation 5 ran at 60 FPS for the most part, but during the big horde fights, there would be some pretty major dips in the frame rate department. I luckily had no crashes, and the load times are pretty fast, but if you're playing with someone who's using a hard drive, you will of course have to wait until they load in. The music fit well into the Aliens universe, and in some of the earlier levels, worked well with the atmosphere of the ship you were exploring. However, while the music wasn't bad in the later levels, it just felt strange and a little out of place with the style of the gameplay. There's differences in what type of music works for games and what works for film. This doesn't mean the music in the game is bad, it's just an odd fit, and I think there's other styles of music that would have worked considerably better. Listen, it's a simple game. If you're looking to just straight up shoot a bunch of aliens, then this game absolutely provides that, but not much else. Before we go any further, I will say personally, I had fun despite its issues, although I do wish some things had been better designed. Keep in mind, this is the type of game I personally enjoy, but I know it's only going to have a limited appeal at best to most people. While I like that a smaller studio is getting a chance with a big franchise, I do really wish they had the proper budget and team size to make this game everything it could have been. I do think some of the problems with the game could have been easily avoided with additional playtesting, or even delaying the game a bit to work on longer because some areas of the game feel half-finished. That being said, I do think with several content updates, this might become a great game, as I feel like this is an amazing genre of game for the Aliens franchise. I just want people to understand what they will get if they buy the game. It's mostly go down a corridor while fighting aliens till you reach a big room. In that big room, there's something you have to activate that will spawn a horde that you have to defend against for a certain amount of time, rinse and repeat. While you technically can play the solo, I would highly recommend against it and would say you basically are required to buy this with friends. There's some pretty major matchmaking issues and the level design is very basic, but I'll be going over that more in just a bit. It really could have used some light puzzle elements or some more elaborate objectives. There was really only one time where you had to destroy some generators, and that actually did create some tension where you had to find a way to destroy them while fending off a giant horde of xenomorphs. This was a really fun gameplay challenge, and I want to see more levels like that in future updates. And like I said, it can be really challenging, and you'll have to heavily coordinate with your group on harder difficulties, so if that's something you enjoy like I do, then you'll definitely get that in Fireteam Elite. And the levels with synthetics does add in some variety, as there's a cover-based system that you have to use to fight against them. There's very few levels with them, but I did enjoy these sections just as a nice breath of fresh air, and they had a nice challenge to them as well. There's a decent amount of enemy variety, but I do feel like it could have used maybe 3 or 4 more types to make it feel right, along with some bosses since there are none in the game. You have your standard xenomorphs, spitters that hit you from range, and exploders. Then you have some elite-style ones that take an insane amount of bullets to kill, and you need to make sure your team focuses them down. There's the stalker ones that can crawl out of holes that will jump you. It can feel a little cheap because sometimes they can glitch out and become invisible, but if you hit a quick time event, you can push them off you. So unlike in other similar games, you at least have some defense against them outside of just having to have your team shoot them off you. If you don't kill them, however, they crawl back on their hole and you have to watch out for them later in the level. There's a few types of synthetics as well, but like I said, they're only in a few levels, so don't expect too much variety. I feel like their presence in the game will be hit or miss for people, but I did personally have fun fighting against them, and it did provide some much needed variety. This can be said of almost any co-op or online game, but Aliens Fireteam Elite really is significantly better with friends. The people I played with made the experience more enjoyable, and we are having fun going for the Platinum Trophy. I did try playing with bots, and it's not a good single player experience at all. You can queue up in matchmaking, but there's several issues with it. For some reason, it only matchmakes for 40 seconds, then will fill up your team with bots, which almost always isn't enough time to find more players. So you have to quit out and re-queue, which can get frustrating, and I wish they would make the matchmaking queue go for longer. Also, you can only queue up for specific missions. There really needs to be a quick play option that allows you to be matched up for people looking to play any mission. This means unless people are searching for the specific mission you're looking to do on the same specific difficulty that you're also looking to do, you will not find teammates. Also, if someone disconnects or the game crashes, you cannot fill up your group mid-match. This actually happened fairly frequently, as it seems the PS4 version crashes a lot. I'm now running into the issue where I've finished the campaign on standard difficulty and I'm working on the next level of difficulty. But if my friends are not online, I can't play the game because through matchmaking, I haven't been able to find a single other person on intense difficulty. I could try it with bots, but when you choose this level of difficulty, it clearly states you can't beat this difficulty with AI companions. Also, even on standard difficulty, I still have trouble finding other people to play with. What confuses me is that we have seen these issues in other online games over the years, and solutions to these problems have been figured out. I know it's a small studio on a budget, but they chose to design these problems into the game, which doesn't make sense to me. So now we will have to wait for a patch to fix matchmaking, which is a huge part of the game and should have been refined further. The story is really light and is presented completely through exposition. The progression system is strange. I don't dislike it, and I actually do like that something different is being tried out. At the same time, I feel like that experiment did not work out too well, but it is something different than a basic skill tree. It felt like even though my combat rating was going up, sometimes I would only be getting side grades to abilities, and I wouldn't really feel any more powerful. This might have been a deliberate design choice, but some guns are significantly better than others. I like experimenting with different weapons, but once I found a few amazing guns, I really didn't need to try anything else out. I said earlier that I'm a huge World War Z fan, and this game definitely does draw inspiration from that game, while being its own thing. While there are a few great Xenomorph Horde defense moments, overall the level design is a bit hit or miss. They seem to not know if they should go for tight areas reminiscent of the first Alien movie, or to go with more open areas similar to other games in this genre, and got stuck somewhere in the middle. On the easier difficulties this works out okay, but once you get to the third level of difficulty, it turns on friendly fire, and the levels are so cramped, and with the way some of the weapons work, I don't see how it'll be possible to avoid hitting your teammates. I do in general like friendly fire as a gameplay mechanic, but with the level layout, I think it ended up being more of an annoyance than a fun extra challenge. Some guns like the flamethrower are insanely powerful, but it blocks everything on the screen, so if a teammate is using one, you literally can't see what's going on, making it hard to avoid shooting them or to avoid getting hit by aliens. The difficulty ramps up quite a bit going to higher difficulty levels, and with how overpowered the Demolisher class is, I think it would be difficult not to use one. Special strategies are going to have to be developed to win on hard difficulties to deal with this. Also, I want to mention on controllers, there is basically no aim assist outside of the Demolisher's smart gun. There's a few attachments that will give you some aim assist, but it was so subtle that I could barely notice it. So if you are interested in the game but have trouble aiming with a controller, I would highly recommend playing the game on PC so you can use a mouse. So overall, as I said, I had fun, but it's extremely rough around the edges and somewhat light on content. If you're a huge Aliens fan and also love third-person co-op shooters, I think there's some fun to be had, and as long as you have friends to play it with and understand the problems with the game, I'd say go for it. If you're a big World War Z fan looking for something else, keep in mind it has issues, but this game might be that something extra you're looking for while you're waiting for the next expansion. However, I would say for most people, this is a game to keep your eye on and see how much content they add in over time and see if they fix some of the issues, and then pick it up on a sale. My hope is that we see Cold Iron Studios learn from its mistakes, and they grow and improve the game over time into something that people can have a lot of fun with. Rating live service games is always a difficult task because the day after I publish this review, they could come up with a patch that fixes several issues. So all I can do is rate the content that they chose to sell at launch and call a finished complete game. I do think over time in the years to come that it might end up being a very good game, but we will have to wait and see after those content updates. I personally want to see that because, as I stated, I really enjoy the style of game, but I understand it's not going to be for everyone, and that's totally fine. With that said, I'm going to give Aliens Fireteam Elite a 6 out of 10. Like I said, I'm going to be going for the Platinum Trophy, which does seem like it'll be quite challenging to do so, which is something I actually enjoy. I've been wanting to do some streaming, so I might stream that, or maybe even some other trophy hunting in the future. I'm curious, if you did get the game, let me know if you're having fun with it. And if you bought it solo, are you enjoying that, or did you buy it with a group of friends? Anyways, if you did enjoy the video, be sure to hit the like button, and subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as I release new videos. Thanks so much for watching, see you all in the next video.